Hola amigos, me llamo Ilya, and that is pretty much the extent of my Spanish right now. Like many other people, I've tried learning, a bunch of languages, but unless I had to learn that language to survive in that country, or there was a teacher just constantly pushing and pushing me to get that good grade, never really worked. Like this summer, I was studying abroad in Prague, and when I found out I was going to Prague, like almost everyone in my program, I decided, I'm going to learn Czech. It's going to be great. I'm going to get there. I'm going to be speaking Czech to these shopkeepers, to my teachers. I'm going to impress everyone. It's going to be awesome. So about 3 months before the program, I started trying to learn Czech using Duolingo. And then 3 months pass. I get there. I get to Prague, and I can't do anything with it. I learned a bunch of useful phrases, but when I'm actually, face to face with a shopkeeper and, I greet them in their language, I say Dobrý den, and they understand, and then they start firing off this rapid Czech at me, expecting me to understand, and I'm just frozen. I'm just sitting there like this. I have no idea what they're saying. All the learning I did wasn't effective. And at the same time, I was following these bloggers who could learn a language in 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months, and get to pretty much conversational fluency, and be able to travel the country, be able to just travel, know the language, and not worry about the language barriers. And I was trying to figure out what was so different between how they learned and how I learned, and if there were some kind of outliers, or if there was a strategy that anyone could use to learn a language like that. So I got home after Europe, and I started researching. I started reading all these blogs, these research articles, these books, videos, you name it. I was probably, taking my time to look at whatever there was out there. And pretty much what I learned is that just like learning in the classroom, there's a bunch of ineffective strategies we use for learning in the classroom, and the same applies to learning languages. So what I want to do with this project is to put all of those techniques and strategies to the test and see if I can learn Spanish in 30 days. So the goal is to learn spoken Spanish well enough to hold a 5-minute conversation with a native speaker without having to resort to English. And all of this has to be done in 31 days. And also, while the goal is important, the why is always important, because otherwise, I won't really be driven to reach it. And the why is twofold. One, I want to test these new learning skills that I've used in other areas, but I didn't really apply to languages. And two, I want to use all of this research and see if those people or those bloggers that I saw, they were actually outliers, or if this is something anyone can do. The reason for learning Spanish other than other languages is that last spring break and this summer made me realize how much richer your experience of any place is if you speak that language. And Spanish is widely spoken enough and very transferable to other languages to where it felt like the natural next step for me. Now, I may have lied just a little bit when I said that the extent of my Spanish is just my name is. The truth is that I know a couple more phrases and a couple more words than that I picked up from movies, music, my friends, or just randomly traveling around, I guess. These words might help me in learning Spanish a little bit, but the biggest advantage I have is my previous language learning background. As you can see, my first language is Russian, and then I learned German to near fluency when I was about 5, but I probably forgot it, so it probably helped me a little bit, but not as much as if I was still fluent in it. Then I learned English to fluency in 5th grade, and I studied French on and off during middle and high school. I didn't really reach conversational fluency in French, especially for the long term, but I do still remember some basic phrases, and I could probably survive if you just threw me in the middle of nowhere in France when they only spoke French. But the thing is, even with those advantages of learning languages earlier in my life, I still, try to learn Spanish, I try to relearn German, I try to learn other languages before, and never really succeeded. So if I succeed with this project, it's not just because I have that background, but it's also because of the techniques I used. And since my goal is conversational fluency, I won't really be focusing on reading and writing as much, except for some vocab building. Almost everything I do will be focused specifically on understanding speech and being able to speak. I'll be using the following tools to learn. Number 1 is Pimsleur. I recently found out that they had a monthly subscription, which is great because otherwise I would not be able to afford it because normally it's like $500 for the entire package. I'll also be using italki, which is a website where you can converse with native speakers of pretty much almost any language in the world. Anki flashcards, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, for learning vocabulary and verbs using spaced repetition. And then movies and music in Spanish for complete immersion. I'll be watching movies in Spanish with Spanish subtitles and pretty much pause and try to translate and add words I don't know to Anki. And then music is just to have a higher level of immersion. My goal is to practice a minimum of 1 hour a day, which is about 2 Pimsleur lessons, as they're about 30 minutes each. But the actual target is 2 hours a day because that allows me to do Pimsleur, flashcards, movies, and pretty much everything I've listed before. And the tools that I've listed, they use pretty much the main strategies that these professional language learners or bloggers or polyglots, whatever you want to call them, use when learning a new language. One is spaced repetition. Once you learn something, you forget it very, very quickly, and you need to review that material soon. Once you review it, you remember it for longer, and then you can wait a little bit longer to review it again. And if you keep doing this with delayed review, eventually you'll be able to remember it for a very long time. Pimsleur already has spaced repetition inside of it, and Anki provides spaced repetition for vocab, which is perfect. And then number 2 is directness and transfer appropriate learning. This pretty much means learning in the same context you'll be using the language in. Since my goal is speaking and understanding spoken Spanish, Pimsleur, italki, and the movies are exactly what will test those skills. The basic idea is it's harder to transfer the skill of Spanish if you're only practicing reading or translating, and then you have to understand spoken language or generate sentences on the fly when you're actually speaking. Another interesting idea is one that Tim Ferriss mentions in his book, The 4-Hour Chef, which is, he calls it the bipolar learning graph. And it's pretty much a graph that shows your confidence of learning anything compared to time that you've spent on learning that thing. The basic idea is that there will be certain inflection points when you're learning anything that are related to your confidence and skill level. I will be recording progress videos similar to this at each of these inflection points, and I'll be doing some written updates and some other personal videos that I can use once I'm done with the project to do a final complete video on how it went, what I did right, what I did wrong, etc. Now, I don't expect to reach, complete conversational fluency after only 60 or 80 hours of practice. But what I expect these 60 or 80 hours of practice to show me is whether these techniques are useful, and these techniques are what differentiates the polyglots or these bloggers who learn a language every 3 months or 4 months from people who learn a language, for a year or 2 or 3 in the classroom and still can't speak it. My plan is to see how well this works and then extend this to 2 months, to 3 months, to other languages or other learning experiments, because if this works, then it just proves that these techniques work and I can extend this to, becoming fluent in 3 months or maybe 4 months. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. And I hope you'll be following along with this little language learning journey that I am about to go on. Thank you.